On Sunday afternoon, we were treated to a fascinating match between Erik Ten Hag's Man United side and Mikel Arteta's Arsenal team. Both teams posed a threat for each other throughout, and ultimately Arsenal came out on top. In today's video, we will dive into how both teams tactically set up and how both teams exploited each other. In this match, we saw Mikel Arteta revert to his usual back four shape, which was likely due to Thomas Partey's injury. Ben White shifted back to right back, Gabriel came back in at centre back, and Zinchenko came back into his normal left back position. Although we know Zinchenko isn't a traditional left back, because when Arsenal have the ball, he drops into that midfield and creates that box midfield shape alongside Rice, Havertz and Odegaard, with Havertz and Odegaard playing ahead of the Englishman and Zinchenko. The front three comprised of Saka on the right, Nketiah through the middle and Martinelli on the left. And a lot of people may think, well, Saka didn't have a great game, he didn't really create too many chances, he didn't pose much of a threat. But when you look at the underlying stats, he was actually really good. He created 5 chances this match, which was more than any other player on the pitch. He won 2 out of his 3 tackles and won 5 out of his 7 ground duels. So defensively, he was doing the work as well, which shows that he's a very disciplined player. Because a lot of players in the league, they may be good going forward, but when it comes to doing the defensive work from an attacking player, they don't necessarily fulfill what the manager needs of them. So that's very good from Saka there. And he got the assist as well for Declan Rice's, obviously, winner at the time. So yeah, he played very well. Nketiah had a decent match, didn't really cause much of a threat, but didn't really do anything wrong. And like I said earlier, Martinelli was on the left and he posed a massive threat for Erik Ten Hag's side.
Martinelli was indeed a big problem for Manchester United, but this was also down to Erik Ten Hag's setup. We went to more of a 4-2-3-1 with Casemiro and Eriksen in that 2 pivots, with Eriksen replacing the injured Mason Mount and seeing Bruno Fernandes progress into that number 10 role. But this new system caused many issues for Erik Ten Hag, and as Zach mentioned earlier, Martinelli was probably the biggest thorn to Manchester United.
Martinelli occupied a higher position than usual this match, and due to his high position, it kept Man United pinned in, as Wan-Bissaka and Lindelof were tasked with marking Martinelli, and because they both doubled up on him, and because Martinez and Dalot both doubled up on Saka, it kept United pinned deep within their own half, and it's evident by the stats. They made 261 passes within their own half compared to the 131 within Arsenal's half, and because they were pinned in so deep, they struggled to play out the back. Also, although this did negatively impact Man United for the most part, it did free up a lot of space for Antony on that right-hand side, who had 49 touches, which is significantly more than Rashford's 28 on the left. However, what Antony did with the ball was not very good, because he only created 1 shot throughout the whole match and had a pass accuracy of 59%, which is awful compared to Rashford's pass accuracy, which is 88%. So as you can see, although Antony had a lot of space and was going against Zinchenko, who is notoriously a weak defender and someone who drops into midfield when Arsenal have the ball, Antony did not make them pay. However, usually Man United tend to attack down the left-hand side with Rashford and Shaw, but maybe because Shaw wasn't there, or maybe because, like I said earlier on, Zinchenko was the left back, they didn't attack down there as frequently. And also Ben White is a more able defender than Zinchenko, because before Rashford's goal in the first half, he didn't receive the ball much, was he? There wasn't much space out there for him. However, obviously when he did receive the ball, he made Arsenal pay. But yeah, like we said earlier on, Martinelli and Saka keeping Man United pinned deep within their own half, stopping them from playing out. And as you saw in the match, if you watched it, United kept a lot of the ball within their own half. They struggled to make those penetrative passes in between Arsenal's midfield and in between Arsenal's back line, and obviously struggled to score goals as well.
Yeah, and as Zach said, this defensive setup for Manchester United caused a lot of issues when they were attempting to play out from the back, with the lack of Casemiro and Eriksen being utilised. It meant that we saw Onana receive the ball a hell of a lot than what Ten Hag would have liked. And it meant that he actually played more passes than Wan-Bissaka and Dalot, which is obviously not a statistic you want to be seeing as a Manchester United fan. And he actually played the most progressive passes in the full 90. So again, not great statistically for Manchester United. As good of a passer he is, you don't want the keeper to be having the ball the most. But that did highlight how Manchester United did struggle to get out their own half. And this actually started with Eriksen and Casemiro sort of picking up the ball. But every time they pick up the ball, it always instantly either go back to Lindelof or Martinez and even Onana, and so they just sort of never really got out their own half. And to reiterate what Zach did say, Manchester United did have more passes in their own half than in Arsenal's half, which again isn't a statistic you want to be hearing as a Manchester United fan, considering Ten Hag is looking to implement his style and be more progressive. In this game, they weren't so much.
So far, it's evident they haven't improved upon their away record last season, because last season their away record was really poor, especially away against the Big Six. I read something like they only picked up 1 point away from home against the top teams last season, which is really poor from a team who wants to be progressive, keep the ball for a while, and a team the stature of Manchester United. They should be definitely picking up more points than that.
And of course, Arsenal's press was to be set up for that, to obviously force Manchester United back, and they were more than happy for Onana to have the ball, or even on the rare occasion go long, because they just gobble it up instantly. United did show what they're able to do when the 2 pivots did receive the ball in Marcus Rashford's goal to put United in the lead. And this was certainly down to a sloppy pass from Kai Havertz, but with Eriksen picking up the ball and playing a brilliant pass to Marcus Rashford through on goal. And of course, it did catch the Arsenal defence off guard. And this is where we saw a brilliant moment from Marcus Rashford. So very undeserved, but at the end of the day, it did show what United were able to do when them two pivots did receive the ball. But of course, we didn't see enough of that in the game on Sunday. And this is a problem for Manchester United, as they were very reliant on Marcus Rashford in this game, just like they were last season. And this isn't really a sight you want to be seeing as a Manchester United fan, because there's not really any signs of progression. And this is down to multiple things. This is down to maybe Ten Hag's system. Is he not improving players? Can he be doing better with players? I understand that with criticism there. But I do think this is also down to the lack of transfers and the players that Ten Hag's not bringing in. The likes of Amrabat, who should have been brought in earlier, he'd have definitely made a difference in this game, which we'll show later for Arsenal's goal. And the likes of Maguire and McTominay should be out the door by now, realistically. And that's why you want to be seeing players be brought in. And that's what Ten Hag did succeed with last season. You brought in the players that he wanted. Whereas this season, we haven't seen too many Ten Hag players brought in. So as much as it is down to Erik Ten Hag's system, he could be doing better and he should be improving his players year upon year upon year. I do think transfers is definitely a crucial sort of thing here for United to succeed, but unfortunately we didn't see that for United. And I'm sure you United fans that are watching this video already understand the frustrations that I'm explaining here with United and Ten Hag's team. And moving on to Arsenal's equaliser, just 1 minute after Marcus Rashford's goal, but this is where we saw the brilliance of two players in particular.
Zinchenko and Odegaard were the two key players in Arsenal's first goal. The way Zinchenko recognised there was space out wide and went to fill in out there created a front five of him, Saka, Martinelli, Nketiah and Odegaard, and they caused havoc for Arsenal's defence. Wan-Bissaka was drawn out to mark Zinchenko, and because Man United's defenders are so aware of Arsenal's wingers, Lindelof went out to mark Martinelli, and this created a massive gap in the middle section of the pitch, and they ultimately stretched Man United's defence. Odegaard, not being a traditional midfielder who runs into the box, he decided to sit on the edge of the area, and because Eriksen wasn't fully aware of Odegaard's movement, he came in on the blind side and finished coolly and calmly into the bottom corner. It leaves the question that if United maybe had a player who was more defensively solid there, would have they been able to know and recognise that Odegaard doesn't come running into the box, but prefers to stay on the edge to score his goals?
I think this is where we can see Amrabat become a key member to Manchester United's squad. I think had they had Amrabat there, that goal may possibly be stopped. So I think when Amrabat does get introduced into the squad, I think we will see a different Manchester United. And I think this is where we could see him become a lot more defensively solid compared to when Eriksen is there. In the second half, we did see new 70 million man Hojlund come on in replace of Martial, and he actually did have a positive impact coming off the bench. And that is with his ability to sort of drop in and link up, which allowed United to utilise their left-hand side more, which we covered earlier. They actually struggled to use that left-hand side with Marcus Rashford not really being in the game other than his goal. And obviously Antony picking up more of the ball. So United were allowed to sort of use that left-hand side more with Garnacho on that side, which is obviously how he did score that last-minute goal. This is actually down to, as Hojlund dropping in meant that Saliba obviously got pulled in and dragged in with Hojlund, and Bruno Fernandes was allowed to play that ball to Garnacho with Arsenal's defence sort of pulled right in. And obviously we did see Garnacho run through on goal with an excellent finish, but it did obviously ended up being offside.
Fine margin.
Very close.
Luckily for me, being a Liverpool fan, I was glad to see that goal was ruled out.
Yeah, it's very close. I do think it was obviously very unlucky for Manchester United. So comment below if you did think that was an offside. I think a lot of people were saying it is.
Ten Hag thought it was onside, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Ten Hag thought it was onside. So comment below what you thought on that.
And I thought it was onside as well. But when you look back at the replays, offside, it literally is yes or a no. I know we can complain and stuff, but generally speaking, 99% of the time, they're going to get the correct decision. It's not a controversial take, like a handball or a penalty or a foul anywhere else on the pitch. And shortly after that, we saw Declan Rice come to the forefront and score Arsenal's winning goal at the time. And it was a brilliant, well-worked goal. Yes, it was straight from a corner, but Declan Rice drew himself to the back post. Saka played the ball in, he controlled it down and struck a beautiful shot into the bottom corner. Yes, there was a deflection, but the power was on it and so was the accuracy. I think Declan Rice had a fantastic game and is exactly what Arsenal need. He's able to progress the ball forward and he made the most passes into the opposition's third throughout the match for Arsenal. And he's not just a player who can progress the ball forward, he's a player who can be defensively sound as well, win tackles, win challenges, win aerial battles. I think he won all of his aerial battles as well. He is an ultimate midfielder. He can be good both offensively and defensively, and he's got an excellent engine on him. So it's not going to be like he's going to slow up at the 70th minute and need to be subbed off. He can play the full 90 at a high tempo and a high intensity. And apart from maybe Odegaard on Martinelli, I think he was probably Arsenal's best player. And you can see how good Partey is when he plays, but when Partey doesn't play and Rice comes in, you can see how Arsenal step up a level because Rice is just an ultimate midfielder. And obviously, as we know, Arsenal wrapped it up late on, and that was likely due to Man United pushing forward and being quite tired, because as you saw, when they were trying to defend, they did look a bit tired, and Dalot got put on his arse, and it was a brilliant finish.
And Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans obviously being a part of defence when you're going all out attack and you get countered, you're very much likely, not a lot of pace in that at all. So it's obviously hard for United to get back and defend that. So Jesus, obviously, clinical finish, sent obviously Dalot down. and it's quality shown by Jesus there.
And it shows you how weak Man United are defensively, because Martinez's injury record isn't woeful, but it's not the best. He does pick up injuries. Varane seems to be out pretty much every week. And although Lindelof is a good defender, he can't play all the time. And when you've got Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire on the pitch, there's not much pace there. Yes, no. Johnny Evans a few years ago was a very good and established defender, but now you don't want him to be playing big crunch matches against the top teams. And alongside Harry Maguire, who isn't quick himself, you're going to get exposed. I know United don't particularly play high up the pitch and high pressing football, but with any top team, you need some pace in your backline, especially in the central positions. And when you consider Dalot and Wan-Bissaka aren't exactly rapid, United were bound to get caught open at some point on the counter.
And as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of controversies in the game. We already mentioned the Garnacho offside, but there's also a Kai Havertz penalty shout, and obviously that got overturned by VAR. What's your thoughts on that, Zach? Did you think that was a penalty?
Initially, I did think it was a penalty because Wan-Bissaka and Casemiro came together and they looked like they collided into Havertz and obviously sent him to the ground. But when you look at the replay, there wasn't much in it. Yes, he did brush Havertz's leg, but the amount of contact didn't justify Havertz going to the ground. I think Havertz maybe thought if he let the ball run, it would have gone into Ainana's glove, so maybe I'll fall down, and because Casemiro and Wan-Bissaka are around me, it would look like they pushed me over. But with VAR nowadays, and what I'm glad to see is that VAR sent Anthony Taylor to the monitor, because usually they're very scared or very nervous or almost afraid to upset the referee's decision and don't send them to the monitor. But because they sent them to the monitor, it showed that they're saying to Anthony Taylor, do have a look at this again. You may not be right here. And I'm glad that Anthony Taylor did overturn the decision. Not glad because I don't like Man United. I didn't want them to win. But glad in the sense of it shows you that the refereeing is going in the right direction and they're making positive decisions on football matches.
I think it was a good shot to be a penalty, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
Do you not think it was soft?
No, because I think we'll see exactly that type of situation be given later on in the season. I think we saw Marcus Rashford.
Inconsistencies.
I can't remember who was the defender, but it was against Nottingham Forest, and they lunged in, and then Rashford sort of obviously made contact with him, and I felt like it was the same. Wan-Bissaka did lunge in at the end of the day. I know Kai Havertz sort of connected with his leg, obviously he made contact with him, but it's due to Wan-Bissaka lunging in that he did make contact, and I think that, listen, I'm not going to say we should be given penalties like that, but I just know for a fact that we'll see a penalty, or see a penalty call like that be given later on in the season. I think that would be just down to the consistency. So in my opinion, I did think that could have possibly been a penalty, and I think United may on another day might have not got away with that.
It's interesting to see that Harvey, being a Tottenham fan, is defending Arsenal. Obviously, me being a Liverpool fan, defending United. But like we said, we're not defending each team. We're just defending what our opinions are really on that situation. And obviously, the other controversial take was Hojlund with Gabriel. Yeah. Personally, I don't think it was a penalty, despite the fact Hojlund was toying with Gabriel throughout the match and did get the best out of him on a lot of occasions.
Yeah. Hojlund did actually cause a lot of issues with Gabriel, and he's a lot bigger than I thought, actually, because I didn't really read about him. He's a new kid. He's sort of just come onto the block, 20 years old. So I thought, okay, who's this? And I just saw he was massive, 6'3". So he did cause a lot of issues with Gabriel, and I think Gabriel did actually sort of struggle at times to deal with him. But with that penalty decision, no, I don't think it is. I think, at the end of the day, Gabriel has just shown a lot of physicality and strength because Hojlund's such a big guy. And I think if we did see penalties given like that, I feel like we'd be seeing them given a lot.
Every week.
I feel like we'd see a lot more penalties be given from sort of them kind of decisions being made, and if you're talking about consistency, if you're going to give that Gabriel one as a penalty,
you've got to give the one at the other end, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got to give one more. You've got to give loads then. Like, there's just sort of no sort of basis to go off of. You're giving penalties left, right and centre. So I think to give that as a penalty would be very harsh. So I wouldn't really agree with any United fans calling for that to be a penalty.
Also, I think it's worth a mention that Gabriel once again shows that he can be bullied by strikers. And we'll put out to Arsenal fans, do you think Arsenal need to improve upon Gabriel if they want to win silverware? Not saying they can't win it with Gabriel in the team, but he does look like a bit of a liability. He does get caught out on occasions, he can be sloppy, and he can get bullied. And yes, there will always be a weaker centre-back. Look at Liverpool when they were at their peak. Van Dijk was always the one strikers didn't go on. They always used to stick on Matip or Gomez because they were the weaker centre-half. However, Matip and Gomez generally did quite well with them, whereas Gabriel we often see struggle against big powerful forwards and often struggles maybe when the pressure's on. So I think Arsenal fans, it'd be interesting to see if you do think that you should replace and improve upon Gabriel if you want to maybe win a Premier League title or a Champions League.
I also do feel that maybe the cover for Gabriel is not enough. You've got Kiwior in there, who, I'm going to be honest, I haven't really seen any of him, and I don't think many Arsenal fans have
Kiwi fruit.
either. Kiwi, yeah.
That's what I was remembering. That's Kiwi.
But I just don't think that's they've not got quite enough depth there. They got Kiwi on. I'll be honest, I don't really know who the other defender is for the cover.
Well,
so quite light there. That's the thing. That's the issue. Obviously, did have Timber. I understand that. It's a good signing for Timber. It's unfortunate with that injury. I think had he not got injured, you'd have a lot more defensive cover there for Arsenal. But with that injury, it's very light in that defensive department. So if there's an injury to Saliba or even Gabriel, who, obviously, as we know, as we discussed, and is he good enough, he's not, comment below. And I think an injury to Saliba or Gabriel could mean a serious problem for Arsenal in terms of their title hopes, because like I said, there's not really too much depth there.
And it's also worth a mention that at the start of the season, Gabriel wasn't included in the team.
Yeah, that's
he preferred to play Partey at right back and Ben White at centre back. And you may think, well, surely that's just Arteta wanting to experiment with the system, but he could have easily dropped White and kept Gabriel at centre-back, but he obviously thinks White is the better defender and played him at centre-back alongside Saliba, so it's interesting to see there. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Gabriel's a bad defender, we're not saying that, but when you're going into those big crunch matches against the likes of Manchester City, Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea, Tottenham, all these big teams, you want your centre-backs to not be mistake-prone and you want to be able to rely upon them when the going gets tough. And even if they do get put into a sticky situation, you want them to be able to come out on top, or if they don't come out on top, be able to recover well, because it is a big weakness having a defender who is mistake-prone. But yeah, we'll put the question out to you Arsenal fans, because me and Harvey do think is a weakness in your team, but we'll have to see what you guys think. So that was how Arteta and Erik Ten Hag tactically exploited each other on Sunday afternoon. It was an absolute cracker of a match, just like it was last season. And it's interesting to see how both teams progress and how they move forward, because there are a lot of problems with United in terms of how they tactically set up, the personnel they play, and ultimately Ten Hag's system, because there is a lot of weaknesses there. And with Arteta's, there is less weaknesses, but like we said with Gabriel, and obviously Havertz in midfield, who we didn't touch upon, but we know a lot of Arsenal fans do have a lot of gripes with him. It'd be interesting to see how they set up moving forward. If you have enjoyed this video, hit the like button and the subscribe button. It is greatly appreciated around here on the channel. And why not, whilst you're here, go check out some of our other tactical videos that have done really well. And go check out the Jude Bellingham as well. I'm sure you'll like that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Enough of the plugging of our own content. We'll catch you in the next one.